Hi, I'm Nick.
Hi, I'm Kieran.
And we are two of the run testers, and today we are talking about two of the most exciting shoes released in 2020, the Nike Alphafly Next and
the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro.
So before we dive into our impressions of the shoe, let's have a quick look at the kind of key stats on them. So I think a couple of things probably worth picking out there is that the fact that the Alphafly is 232 grams, it's quite light considering how absurdly big it looks, and that actually comes a bit heavier despite being a half size smaller.
So this is 246 grams in a UK men's size 8.5.
And this is a UK 9 for 232. And this is also a much lower drop. It's 4mm drop, although that is quite a weird drop, that shoe.
Yeah, I mean, you set it down and there's all the drop is at the front here, right? The rest of it feels like it actually runs like quite a flat shoe.
So with design, I'm going to start with the upper on the Alphafly, which is this new atom knit, which is they got rid of the vapor weave on the Vaporfly Next, which was slightly water resistant, and just made a kind of very, very open mesh upper. It's tight. It's pretty solid all round. The midsole also differs from the Vaporfly in that it has the ZoomX foam at the back, the kind of classic Nike soft bouncy foam, but then they've whacked these Air Zoom pods at the front. They're basically firmer, more responsive, they return more energy. The idea is to give you a bit more pop to your toe off with every stride. And then on the outsole of the shoe, Nike's actually put quite a lot of rubber, especially at the forefoot of the shoe here. Should really increase its durability. There's not a lot at the back still, so you are going to rip that up if you ever go off-road. Don't ever go off-road. But yeah, there's a bit more rubber at the front, which probably partly explains the fact it's jumped quite a bit in weight compared to the Vaporfly.
Has it got a wider base at the front than the Vaporfly?
I think it's probably pretty similar, but because the Vaporfly was quite wide, it's definitely wider than the 4%.
Okay. And then over to these guys. These guys have got a Cellar Mesh upper, which is Adidas's mesh. It's got some sort of material fabric stitched on the inside, which is this crosshatch just to add a little bit of comfort. It's really flexible, not very waterproof, hugs the foot really nicely. You've got sort of classic middle lacing, which I think these guys have missed. They've gone back from the offset lacing that the Vaporfly had.
It's still slightly offset, but it's not so dramatically offset as the Vaporfly.
And there's actually one thing, there isn't much by way of supports on the outside of this. You get some overlays, just a few minimal overlays there. And then midsole foam, you've got Light Strike Pro. I'm not too sure exactly what material that is. And then one thing that's different here, you've got up front, you haven't got a foot-long carbon plate on these. You've got 5 energy rods.
Wolverine
claws sit here under the metatarsals, under your pinky toes at the front, and then you've got a nylon heel plate that sits at the back on top of the midsole foam, which is there to help with stability at the ankle joint. On the bottom you've got a little bit of rubber. It's very, very smooth.
Crazy.
Not very grippy. And then you've got a little bit of extra rubber here on the heels, which it's actually a bit more similar to the original Vaporflies. But yeah, this doesn't really give you much grip, so this is really very much a straight line shoe.
Right, let's talk about the fit of these shoes. I'm laughing already because Kieran took about 10 minutes to get the Alphafly on this morning, even though it's half a size up on your normal size. So explain this.
Yeah, I was really excited to put these shoes on, and then realised that even though it's half a size, I couldn't get my feet in through the opening. I couldn't get it up over the top of my foot, to the point where I got a little bit cross. And yeah, it reminded me of a time when I couldn't get my Wellington boots off at Glastonbury. Bit frustrating, and actually it sounds like a silly thing, but it would be a bit of a deal breaker for me. I don't think I could go half a size up. The rest of it fit perfectly, but putting them on and off, I would only do it for marathon day, and I literally didn't want to take them off, right?
No, we didn't. We were meant to do a load of shots of them, and he didn't help me out. I had to do all the changing because I can get my feet in and out of shoes, which is a real bonus in this line of work.
So if you have got big, high, wide feet, that is a consideration.
But once it's on, it is comfortable, and it was true to size for me, and this was half size up for you, but felt comfortable.
Yeah, once it was on, it felt fine.
So it's a nice, I'd still say go true to size, but it has got tags both ends to help you jam it on if you do have that same problem. I will say I have not had that problem. It's been going on and off pretty easily, but it's not a stretchy opening. So yeah, if you're struggling to get in, you're going to have to force it in, as we found out today.
By contrast, the fit of these I found to be great. I had a little bit of a struggle to wrestle in over this point here, and again just sort of sliding the foot in and getting the tongues to sit nicely. And then once those tongues were nicely, you could sort of tie down, and we got a really nice kind of lockdown. They sort of hug the foot really nicely here, give you a lot of kind of security and support, feel really comfortable, really nice kind of tight lock in the back, and also up front there's just enough room, I think, to manoeuvre and wiggle those toes so you don't feel restricted and that you feel like you're in control when your toes are striking the ground.
Definitely. I mean, I wore a Kieran shoe which is half a size down on my normal size, and normally in Adidas that's suicide. They're normally very narrow, very tight. I normally size up actually in Adidas, but actually it was pretty comfortable. I even had just about enough room at the forefoot. I probably would still go true to size if I bought the shoe, but you don't have to worry about it being that, you know, that classic Adios very narrow, short and restrictive. It's a much more open shoe, kind of leads more to marathons, I think.
Yeah, so I went true to size in these in 8.5 in the UK.
And it was great.
So I've come up to visit Nick, and I brought the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro with me because I've been running in those and Nick hasn't had a chance to run in those. We're luckily both the same size, and I haven't run in the Nike Alphafly. So Nick had those, has been running in those, and we have swapped shoes. We're about to go out and do some fast miles, and we will see what we make of both of them.
Should be fun.
Let's go. So we're back. Nick, what was your run? What did you do?
Today I did an hour with half easy and then basically half at 6-minute miles, so 5 miles and 30 at the end there, which is just a little bit slower than marathon pace, but it's pretty standard training run, yeah.
And how have you found the Adios, Adizero, Adi blah blah, Adi Pros?
So I like them. I would say, like, I don't feel like I get as much pop off the forefoot as I do in the Alphafly and the Vaporfly. I feel like it's a little bit slower from heel to toe, and I had to just do a bit more picking up myself in a way. I wasn't getting that kind of tip forward. They definitely feel more like a cruiser to me. Like, off this very early run, I would like to take them out on a marathon. I'm not sure I'd fancy like 5k in them. I think they'd probably be a bit too much shoe without that kind of pop, but they're very comfy, and they're definitely lighter than they look with that chunky sole.
Could you get them on all right?
Yeah, I get them on, which is vibes. How do you find the run, and what do you do today?
Yeah, so I've just done, I did the same. I did basically about a 10k, so 3 miles out, 3 miles back. 3 miles just slightly slower than my normal marathon pace, and then 3 miles on the way back with heavy legs, just sort of hanging on for dear life, to be honest. And actually I found these are a very different sensation to the Vaporfly. They're very different from the Adios to me.
Yeah.
They're actually one of those shoes they noticeably odd when you first put them on, if you can get them on. I always say this in every video, I've got wide feet, and it was a real struggle to get my feet into these. Like I wouldn't want to be putting these on that often for that. Yeah. I don't think I could half size up. On the run though, I think they're definitely more up on the toes. You can definitely feel the propulsion more than you get with the Adios. Yeah. I'm not sure that I prefer the overall run to the Vaporfly though. I find the Vaporfly feels a little bit more light, a little bit more nimble. There's, I find sort of just as much pop in them as well. Yeah. And I just feel a bit more agile on the foot. That said, I have enjoyed running in these for what I've done in that short run. I'd like to see how I am over a longer distance.
So it comes to running performance. So I've logged probably around 100k, a bit more in the Alphafly, but I've only used the Adios for the first time this morning, and it's kind of the other way round with the Adios.
I've done about 50 miles in the Adios, and I only ran in the Alphafly this morning for the first time, did about 6 miles.
So let's start with the Adizero Adios Pro.
So these, I really enjoyed running in these. I would say I used to run in the old school kind of Adizeros, and I think since then Adidas hasn't really produced a shoe that I've really enjoyed. These are the first time I've laced into a shoe that I loved from the get-go out the box. They are nice and responsive. You do feel a bit of pop. They are not, I think, as poppy as maybe the Vaporfly or necessarily the Alphafly. They are super cushioned, comfortable. I think they are a fast shoe that will be good for a lot of people over a half marathon distance, a half and a marathon distance. And I really enjoyed them actually. I did some marathon pace work, I did some track work, 400-meter repeats, and I did some slower runs as well, just to see how they would cope in that kind of end of a marathon where you might be flagging a bit. And I felt like these were quite versatile across the range. Yeah. Actually, I felt they were quite forgiving for those miles where you might actually have gone out maybe too fast in a marathon and then be struggling a bit. Yeah. And that makes them quite a democratic shoe. Maybe not as stable as some of the other shoes we've got here.
But yeah, so yeah, my first impressions are quite similar, to be honest. I did an hour this morning in them, did a half an hour easy, then half an hour around 6-minute miling, and they felt good. Like, they felt great for that kind of cruising pace. That's still a little bit slower than my actual marathon pace, and I think at marathon pace you could cruise in them really comfortably. They definitely help you kind of maintain.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've got that all-out top-end speed that I think you do still get from the Vaporfly, and actually I do think from the Alphafly as well, even though it is such an odd-looking shoe. But like I said, they're slightly weird. We both kind of noticed this. You feel like your tip's slightly backwards sometimes in those shoes, and when you're running, you don't get that thrown forward feel that you do get from the Alphafly and the Vaporfly. But they are very comfortable, and yeah, enjoyed them.
I didn't feel like there was quite so much of a platform underfoot as you get with these as well. Noticeable when you first put those on. Yeah. You know, the first time I put them on today, I sort of commented to you. You know, you're like, whoa, that is a very different feeling.
And it's the same stack height. It's just you feel like a bit more in the foam, I think, in that than on this. You're really sitting on top of this huge lump of foam. It feels like.
Yeah.
But it's still absolutely brilliant shoe to run in. So obviously I've done quite a lot on this. I've done long runs. I've done a 5K all out, a 5 mile all out virtual race. Few sessions in them, and basically any time I'm running quick, I've loved running in this shoe. When you're up there at speed, you're landing under yourself, you really do feel the kind of nice soft landing here, a quick roll through. I think a quicker roll through than I got from this shoe, onto those Air Zoom pods, which are more poppy than the Vaporfly. You do kind of get going again very quickly. As soon as you slow off your marathon, off any kind of pace, and you're running easy, or your form goes a bit, they're not ideal. They're not very forgiving. The stack just starts to get in the way.
That's exactly what I found this morning. So I did a 6 miler, I did 3 miles out at just about marathon pace, maybe it's like 10 seconds under, and that for me is like 6:57 minute miles. Right. And then on the way back, I did 3 miles with sort of slightly heavier legs. And I loved the way out, and they felt really good, and I felt, you know, up and fast, and I could feel these shoes working underneath. On the way back, where I was sort of a bit heavy, bit laggy, it was a bit more of a struggle, and I didn't enjoy that as much at all.
Definitely. I've done these kind of short races, and I do think they're still a great shoe for short races, surprisingly, given the stack on them. But I've noticed when I've done reps in them, if I've been doing like kind of 1K reps and my form stop, and I'm at the end of the session when I'm just holding on for pace, these aren't helping at that point. They're kind of getting a bit ragged. However, like when you're at a kind of race pace and you're feeling good and you're landing on yourself, I don't think there's a better feeling shoe for me in the world than this shoe. Like, it's just so smooth, very propulsive, soft, comfortable, everything you want, but you need to be in the correct position to run in them. You need to be tall, you need to be landing forward, you need to be leaning forward, I think, to get the most from them. And I will say also the high stack is not very stable. I think I slightly pronate in them, it's that high. Not really a worry when you're just using it for racing. Don't use this for loads of training, I think it's fair to say. But that would be a worry if you're already a stability runner. I think you shouldn't really be using a shoe of this high platform, I think, just because it's so soft and so high. But all that said, there are caveats to it, but I do think it's an absolutely superb racing shoe.
And I think that sort of similarly with this, all of these shoes, I think they tend to perform best when you're running in your best form at your best paces, right? This is when they really come into their own. Yeah.
And I think the kind of key to that is not just a shoe that's only going to perform well. So my marathon pace is about 5:50 a mile. It's about what your pace is, I think, is key. So if you don't need to be a sub-3 marathoner to get the benefits from these shoes necessarily. If you are a much slower runner, you might find that changing your training gives you much more benefit than using a shoe. But if you're running hard and with good form, it doesn't actually matter what the actual pace is, I think, is sometimes important to say.
Yeah, I guess, and I guess that's what we're really talking about. It's more about form than it is about speed, right?
Yeah, but I will still say, if you're a very elegant 4-foot runner running a 5K, you probably don't need this, do you? So you might still prefer the Vaporfly just because it's just such a lot of shoe, even if it isn't really contributing to a huge amount of weight.
Which did you prefer, the uppers on these or these?
I don't think I had a preference. I'm not someone who gets massively irritated by uppers, but I think unlike someone here. But I found them both pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and also just with reference, the comparison, I think I much preferred the uppers to these to the Vaporflies as well.
Oh yeah, you don't like Vaporwave, the way it kind of scrunches up.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's get on to the verdict. And the key question here really is, tomorrow, Kieran, you've got your big race, marathon. What are you going to lace up if you had the choice of these two shoes?
Well, actually, I think because I've run a little bit in this and not very much in that, I'd probably go back to the Vaporfly would be my preference, and then maybe over the long run, once I tested more of this shoe, that I'd be inclined to pick that for the marathon.
Okay.
So yeah, probably over time this one.
I think I haven't run in this shoe much, but this has been my favourite shoe this year. I think it really works well for me. I think you just get a bit more pop in the forefoot with this shoe than you do on some of the others, including my very first impressions of the Adios. I do think the shoe won't work for everyone just because of this huge stack. And I do think in that case, I'd probably still recommend going to the Vaporfly over that shoe just from my limited testing. But yeah, these are both very good shoes for running long distance marathons. I'd say over short distances, I'd definitely go for this. I think it's definitely quicker over like a 10k, 5k, half than what my impression of this was. But obviously I haven't run it very much.
I think the other thing, if I wasn't in good nick, so if I was going to go out and run tomorrow, not fully marathon trained, well then I wanted something that was going to be a bit more for you, I might go for something like this. Yeah. So if I wasn't heading for PB, I might opt for something different.
A bit more comfy.
Yeah, a bit more comfy, just to run a sort of casual fast marathon rather than an out and out, you know. So I think, you know, when people are choosing a shoe, it's important to think about whether or not you're actually in that sort of top form.
Yeah, and it's a lot cheaper as well, which I think we should mention. Yeah. Probably going to be more. Well, none of these shoes are very available, but if it's going to be, that is £90 cheaper than this shoe.
Yeah,
that's a huge saving for a shoe that might work better for. It probably will work for more people, this shoe, just because of the slightly outlandish design of this shoe.
Yeah.
When this works and you're on form, it's superb.
Yeah.
But if you don't like this big stack of cushioning, then you're not going to love it, really. Yeah. That's it, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Do let us know in the comments below if you have any questions about either of these shoes. Let us know if you want to see any of these shoes compared to other shoes and what you really like and dislike about these kind of super shoes out there at the moment. But please do like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and I guess we'll see you next time.